I also want to say, to be clear here before we start today, I am not just talking about the state of the game. I very specifically said on the title, this is a look at the state of the project. So this isn't just to talk about 4.0 and the struggles that we're seeing there. This is to talk about how ship sales are going, how the financials have been going. We don't have financial information right now, but you can at least look at some of that stuff. How the community is taking information, the progress from last year to this year, Squadron 42, that kind of stuff. It's not just the current state of like the game performance. Tutorial's broken. Yeah, that's not a great. That's actually a really good place to start a talk about the state of this project is the new player experience. I think that's probably the most important thing at this point, right? They've got, like, we're tied in, okay? I'm not saying that people like us, the type of people who would watch the stream, are going to go and find another game if it's better. There are, I'm sure, some people who are diehard Star Citizen, no matter what, will only play Star Citizen, but plenty of people, myself included, are just looking for a good space game and will go elsewhere if there is one. And I think a lot of people, I think CIG knows that. They need to keep making content that makes us interested. But I genuinely think the most important thing on their mind should be the new player experience right now. Because kind of like the free flies, if you can get people past the first hurdle of Star Citizen, which is literally just like listening to somebody talk about it, that's step one. So if they can like make it easy for players to get past the absolute horrid amount of learning curve there is in this game, then they can maybe see what makes the game more fun for people, and that would keep people around more. So tutorial, yeah, figure it out. Early game progression, absolutely. Missions, yes. Starter ships, get them gold standard. In fact, even the website needs to be better for new players. If you get onto this website and you don't know what's going on, hold on, let's go incognito real quick. You can't really find on the website, on the front page, you can't find a description of the game. Like if you were actually interested in Star Citizen and you wanted to find out, okay, cool, this looks sick. What's the website? Robert Space Industries. You click into it, and the first thing you see is literally a ship sale. I'm not logged in. This ship sale should only pop up for somebody if they're logged in. Like, if this was the first thing you saw, you click in, you'd be like, okay, it's a huge year. It's culminated in an opening. And to make sure you're ready to take on the bloodthirsty gangs, every ship and ground vehicle is available for a limited time. You'd be like, okay, limited time. So I guess you can only earn the game in the shipping game during a limited time. Check out the categories below and don't miss your chance to pick up what that got away in 2024. You'd be like, okay, cool. Combat. Ooh, I like combat ships. Is this like a mini game? What is this? Oh, wow, more combat ships. Fly now. Okay, I'll fly. Oh. Dude, I'm not even logged in. Like, they need to fix this. I think this was, even before this was like a little bit too much, but at this point, this game is not. No, the marketing in this game is going to too many casual players. We just had a podcast about this yesterday. People who have no idea what Star Citizen is are now starting to learn about it. It and Squadron 42, and like, for that to be the normal path you take when you get on the website and you end up in front of a freaking $485 price tag is it's not good, man. You can sell this stuff, just present it correctly. I think it's like it's like how they have the concierge store, and only people who have spent so and so amount of money on the store can see certain packages. That's what this should be. I don't even think somebody who isn't logged on the website should even be able to see this page. So there you go. I think that's not a great start, but like that's a timed sale. What would happen if that weren't the case? You would probably see the most recent. Actually, you'd likely see the most recent Inside Star Citizen or Star Citizen Live or something like that. But like more of scrolling through here, like there's a shop now thing here. Okay, you got Welcome to Star Citizen. But I honestly don't think this is where people are going to go. This is probably what should be at the top. This is where somebody's going to go. They're going to click in here. If they don't click on this first little video playing, they're going to scroll down, see Star Citizen and be like, oh, that's what I want. Okay, and what does this do? It's still not telling you what the game is. It just says like taglines, a limitless sci-fi universe. Okay. There are certainly limits, CIG. Your elevators limit my enjoyment. Here it says, make a life amongst the stars in a limitless multiplayer universe. Learn more. Okay. So maybe you have to click learn more specifically instead of the, yeah. So there's a little button inside the button, but there you go. So this will take you to a probably what is Star Citizen video. Yeah. Which honestly, I think is a little ambiguous, but that is a possibility when you get on the website. I think that maybe they could make this the first thing that pops up when you join the website though, because that's what people want to know. This was, I found this part just the other day when I was going through here. I knew about this video. This part's so weird to me because it's like such a unnecessary kind of title screen thing. It's not an MMO. It's not like, it ain't a game yet. But they do tell you a bit about the game here. Seamless universe, a vast sandbox, expect unmatched beauty and danger in equal measure, all delivered seamlessly without loading screens or transitions. Play your way, haul cargo, salvage shipwrecks, mine and refine ore, rescue lost pilots, race hunt criminals. There's a career to suit everyone in the verse. Okay. Rescuing lost pirates. AAK, how's that going? How you doing, buddy? There's a decent amount of, like, these are actually the reliable bits of gameplay. Refine ore, it's like a button press, but salvage, mining, hauling, and combat are basically the 4 ways you can play the game when it works right now. And racing. Racing is a good one. Shout out to all y'all. Fight to thrive. It's a wild verse out there. Pirates stalk the space lanes while violent outlaws run the darkest corners of the system. This is talking about piracy. Okay, your ship, your home. Take the captain's seat aboard a vast spectrum of richly detailed spaceships and ground vehicles. Your ship, your home is a funny one because we were just talking the other day about how players probably need to learn on their own that they can log out from beds. But I think people would people don't know that your ship is supposed to be your home, and they don't even tell people to log out from their beds or anything like that. Like, this is that new player stuff I'm talking about. If people knew they could log out from their beds, how much less would it be a complaint that the game takes forever to get started? It is a great idea, your ship, your home, but I don't think for a little while longer it's going to feel that way. Create your own legend, character customizer, cool, and forge your path. Join a passionate and diverse community. 'Tis passionate and diverse. Here we are. Let's see. If you stray from your beaten path, you'll find action at every turn, from intense ship dogfights to fierce FPS battles across planets and space stations. So I don't think anywhere on this page it tells you this game is full loot. If you die, you'll lose everything. Well, everything that you're carrying. That's there are like a couple big staples, I think, of the game that define whether or not somebody's willing to try it. PvP being possible anywhere. Gameplay being more focused on the process of the gameplay rather than just doing it. Not to say other games aren't, but like there's, how do you put it? It's more granular gameplay. It's full loot, so you can lose the things you have when you die. Like, I think those are some of the key things that should be on this page. That should tell people what they're getting there, what they're getting into. So this has been the front page of the website, and I think that the redesign is better, but I think the content that is up here is still very confusing. Now, I can't possibly know because I've been looking at this website for years, but I do think that if somebody were to, I don't know, what's like a popular game website? Like a really big website or game that is independent. Give me a name and let's look up. Does Satisfactory have their own? Guess that'd be on Coffee Stain, huh? Satisfactory. Let's see what their website looks like. How do they greet a new player? Buy now trailer official site. It's official site. Okay. So they've got the trailer. That helps. Having the trailer right here is pretty good. Does it take you away from the page? It does. Just put you on YouTube. Scrolling down, construct, automate. It's a first-person open world factory building game. See, there we go. That's all. Dude, why don't they do this on the Robert Space Industry website? So yeah, Satisfactory. It opens with the trailer in the background, just like with Star Citizen. Granted, Star Citizen's is a sale, but we'll ignore that. You scroll down in Satisfactory and you get a game description. You scroll down in Star Citizen and they point you towards the game. You just have to click here. I feel like having it right there where you can read is better. Yeah, this feels like it's telling me more about the game. And then you start to get into your patch notes and stuff. Like, it's not that different, but I think the content says something. No one wants to read the 2-paragraph explanation of what SC is. Oh man. If you can't summarize it in less than that. You know I'm like one of the top 10 best players in Path of Exile 2. All right, they got the links to buy it. Get access now. As if this wasn't access. So this looks like it gets into lore. Oh, look at you guys. Okay. So I guess it really does go to show like what is most important to your game. This one's like going hardcore into the lore, showing you character classes. It is definitely still like trying to get you hyped for the game's systems though. And just the funny thing about this is that Star Citizen just hasn't been able to do that much because their systems haven't been built. Like if you think about what systems make up a game, like crafting and power and stuff, that's just now happening. Who do you pay to get you there? Dude, come on. I'm just playing Path of Exile in between running a bunch of companies and stuff. This is for you. CIG keeps it intentionally vague. That way the customer imagines his or her perfect game. Well, up until you guys notice they've started to do more trailers like this. What's on the screen here? Like more kind of narrative game focused trailers than just showing off features. I think you're right. They've wanted people to just imagine what the game was going to be because they didn't have the actual content to show it off. And now they're starting to a little bit more. Both sites are great. SC websites simply must be primarily marketing focused until they can start to generate other forms of income. You're right about that. It's probably a better way to put what I was trying to say. Their website's geared towards sales, but I think that needs to kind of start shifting. I know they don't. It's not time for it to. They're not making money other ways, but like you got to think about the people who want to play the game rather than just buy the ships when you come to the website. The people who want to buy ships are going to go through the hoops to buy the ships. The people who want to play the game, then again, maybe you don't want them in the game yet. Anyways, the 4.0 page is out, and this is a good look at kind of where the game is in terms of what they're trying to deliver. A Lawless Frontier shows that their focus is right now on Pyro. That makes sense. It's literally the update of Pyro. We've been waiting years for it. And they describe it as being not quite ready for prime time, and therefore launching the 4.0 preview. This preview will contain the new technology, the features, the locations, the ships, all of the stuff in 4.0 outside of the features that were delayed already, and some of the missions actually are not in there, which we'll talk about in a second here. But it's playing alongside Alpha 324.3. We all know this. You guys have been suffering through this. And this is a distinct change from how they do things. They've never done this before in the past. We're going to talk about the 3.0 launch here in a little bit, and you'll see that even this was a similar situation with 4.0. Actually, the 3.0 launch was worse than 4.0, which you'll see soon, but they did not attempt to try and keep some kind of stable version running in the background. Now, that's not to say they succeeded with this. 324.3 is also pretty bad. So is 4.0. And so is the 4.0.1 PTU. Everything's running pretty poorly right now, likely because they're trying to run everything at the same time, partially. But there is a clear effort both in trying to make sure the game is running better and also forcing 4.0 out. I think there is a lot that had to do with them absolutely needing to get 4.0 out in 2024. But some of this is part of that focus that we're seeing, that they recognize players need to enjoy playing the game. This is a key difference in their communications that I think we can all take note of. And we don't have to set all of our expectations on it, but it should at least show some signs that they're kind of taking the complaints of players seriously, and they realize this game makes money when it plays well. This game does well when it plays well. It doesn't matter how many ship sales they have. If people aren't playing the game, the funding doesn't work. They saw that last year after 3.23, and they even saw that to some extent with 4.0. So I think both them trying to get the 4.0 code base out early in 3.24 to try and make the stability work better ahead of time, and then pushing it like this is basically part of them trying to get 4.0 out without having it be completely broken, like 3.18 or like 3.0. Did it succeed? I don't think so. But again, the general, the little signs here and there that alone I don't think really mean much, but together kind of show that they're starting to focus more on making sure that people actually like the game is good. And that also might be coinciding with Squadron 42 taking maybe some less time than it was before. In Star Citizen, you can do whatever you want and explore the stars on your own terms. You can mine ore, haul cargo, salvage space wrecks, hunt bounties, become a mercenary, or even take up a life of crime, fly and drive a vast variety of vehicles and play how you want. The possibilities are endless. See, why don't they put that on the front page? Why is that in the new player guide? Okay, so that's what's going on with the launch of 4.0. It's an unstable mess, and they're running it in parallel with other things because they knew it would be. Pyro was out, but we don't have a law system to really back it up. And I think the law and reputation system is starting to hold the game back. It's not starting. We're like well into it, holding the game back, because it's hard to feel safe in Stanton, and it's also kind of hard to progress in the game. Like, we don't have motivations. If you could say unlock missions that allow you to fight alongside Blackjack security through reputation progression, that might be more exciting than just getting a bigger combat mission from them or something. There's not really much of a narrative or anything mixed into this gameplay to make it more interesting. So 4.0.1 is on the PTU. This is what they're hoping will help to stabilize the situation a little bit after 4.0. There's no reset. It's available to everybody right now, focusing on stability, performance, and bug fixing, and save Stanton Chapter 2. This is an evolution, I think, on the dynamic events or global events they've been doing. Something they're likely going to depend on more to start to introduce content into the game, to carry the main story forward a bit more, to be a little bit more in players' faces, narratively speaking. I think that this is the beginning. Well, actually, I think Operation Overdrive was the beginning of that, and this is their second attempt. So we've got critical problems going on here. This is a lot of blockers. They still got a lot to do. When did this come out? 24th. So this is a few days ago. I don't know what the latest update looks like, but this one they had poor performance on Monox. They had FPS weapon audio missing, hydrogen and quantum fuels not depleting, enemy AI not spawning, hangar elevator not working, trains popping in, helmets that are carried then dropped at pit menu, commodity kiosks are preventing purchases, collision for hangar doors, not streaming in into a player inside the hangar. A lot of pretty big problems. This is a here's a big one though. I think this speaks to the conversation we've been having here. We talk about band-aids. This is a band-aid. If they're trying to fix this, trains popping in when they arrive, all of the things you see, here we go, calling for Starlight Hangar elevator from hangar may cause you to teleport into an empty elevator shaft. Collision for hangar doors do not stream in. These are band-aids, right? Because of what we talked about earlier. Those, specifically the ones that I just mentioned, these are all things that would be handled likely by the transit refactor. Trains, transit refactor. Hangar doors, transit refactor. Man, it might be ATC, but I'm pretty sure hangar doors are related to the instancing and transit. And the elevators, transit refactor. So like, they could keep fixing these patch after patch, or they could put in the time to do the actual transit refactor. And what I'm saying is now that server meshing is here and they have the time to do the transit refactor, in a year, we see if these are still a problem. If they are, then I think CIG has a big issue on their hands. And I think that the game is genuinely in danger. But now is the time where we get to see if that actually fills out. I don't really know what's going on with the transit refactor. Of course, all of this is being said, assuming that that refactor would be done by this time next year, which, God, please. I'll laugh myself to death if it's not. But when going through these bug lists, I think a lot of the things that pop up are things that they're just trying to fix over and over until they can do something actually big to fix it. And that, I think, is what has bugged a lot of people. So hopefully they're fixing that after server meshing. All right, they've got more bug fixes, possible fixes rather, speculative fixes even. But clearly there's still more work to be done with the 4.0 update. Now, the Volt guy. I'm right here with this guy. Like, what the heck happened to these weapons? This is the second time they've popped up. And then just completely, they're gone. But genuinely, why did you show them if they weren't coming in 4.0? Like, wasn't that the actual name of the episode they were in? Wasn't it like... No, it was just Inside Star Citizen. Weapon content team. I don't think they said them when those weapons were coming. But man, I'm actually very surprised that we still haven't seen these weapons. Honestly, it's just probably in its worst state of disrepair. If you take into account the ships, it's a lot of outdated ships. There's a lot of glitches going on. The game's relatively unstable. It's in a pretty shaky state, not gonna lie. Just looking at the problems that we're having in terms of our conversation, and also just the state of the game in general, but also the state of ships. I've been following this a lot because I worked on that video with the backlog last year, and then I was working on me and Starjump were talking about this last week as well, just the amount of ships that need updates. The saving grace here is that part of the reason it is in disrepair is because the vehicle team, the ship team, has been so busy working on systems rather than just ships. So they've been working on the new quantum travel system, the new scanning and ping system for ships, and the engineering system. Those three things are going to definitely make ships feel better. And I think that once those are in the game, they're going to be able to more easily update ships. We've actually seen with 4.0 that they're starting to update ships kind of subtly. They're adding internal storage to ships. They're fixing some of the smaller issues. So we're entering, it feels like, maybe a stage of more frequent updates to ships. But again, we're at a state of wait and see. I think 4.1 will be telling, but I was saying this at the end of last year. We don't know anything going into the new year. All we know is that they finally reached their milestone, and now they need to shift and start doing some other more important things regarding player feedback and player experience. And now we see. All right, back to 3.0's launch. This is part of the reason why 4.0 is not really surprising to me. Folks who were here for 3.0 remember just how freaking terrible it was. I found a couple posts that show it's actually really hard to find. It's hard to find conversation from back then. Every time I try to search for something about the 3.0 launch, it's just 3.24 stuff. So they say download 3.0 basically the day it came out, but whenever I loaded it, it took 25 minutes for the game to load into Crusader, and then the game would play at 2 frames per second. This was not rare. This person said, I have a 5-year-old CPU and GPU with 16 gigs of RAM. I only get 10 frames per second. This person says, I'm getting 5 frames per second of performance. This was the norm. Servers are still 5 to 7 frames per second for me. Chris Roberts talks about, ooh, okay, let's see what he has to say about it. 3.0 was freaking terrible. 3.0 was actually, nobody got over 10 frames per second, basically. I would say maybe 1% of people were getting close to like 20 frames per second. It was awful. Let's see. Not so much about player count, but more about what the players are doing in our internal testing performance that we saw in PTO or live once thousands of players got in and started doing all the things. Fill up a caterpillar with cargo, blow it up for an outpost on a moon, and you can bring the clients and servers to their knees. One other common issue that can kill performance is interpretation of objects, as that causes an overload on physics. An example of this is an asteroid mission that was spawning on top or near Olisar and being sucked into the local grid, causing all sorts of issues and deadlocks. In addition, we need to do a better job of efficiently handling the bigger ships, which can bring thousands of additional elements to update, as opposed to the smaller ships that have a lot less items and geometry. Have a bunch of people fly around in Starfarers and Caterpillars, and you're straining the clients and server far more than you would with a bunch of Auroras and Hornets. These problems were figured out with object container streaming. Again, anybody who was here at this time remembers we were going through updates. 4.0 came out, 3.0 came out in December, and we basically were in pre-20 frames per second up until 3.3. So November. It took until November of the same year for them to release the update, the patch that actually made the game playable after 3.0. That was great. So this was all 3.0 discussion. There are actually articles at the time. As it stands, major milestone Alpha 3.0, Star Citizen does not convince as a game, but as a picture postcard maker. Standing on top of a canyon on a dusty, windswept planet, looking up at suns and moons in the sky, and knowing you can fly up to them is hair-raisingly cool. Knowing when night comes, it's because of the rotations and orbits of those planets, of some of those stars. It's an awesome feeling. And even though there might only be a handful of planets to touch down on, they are truly massive, taking probable hours to fly around. It's a simulation of the highest detail and largest proportions. But once you've seen the eye-popping sights, once you've flown down from space onto a planet and then back up again, once you've seen the beautiful Blade Runner hubs with their rebellious posters on murky... Oh, that's Grimhex. There's little to do. You can buy fancy-looking guns. You can even buy a great big railgun, which charges up and then very satisfying it unloads. But there's nothing to kill. Likewise, you can buy various suits of armor off mannequins in shops, one of the game's many lovely flourishes of detail. But there's no real need to look other than to look cool. I would say that's still true. There's still not too much reason to pick different armors. I mean, some of them have some nice benefits to them, but it's still not quite where it should be. There are a handful of missions to run, but they're tepid and boring. One, for instance, is off the books. Private investigation. Even the spaceship dogfight struggled to impress me, owing to a distinct lack of heft from the available weaponry, which feels tinny and machine gunny rather than thumping and deadly. I realize that Star Citizen's careers are still to come, salvaging, smuggling, bounty hunting, and so on. Besides, this is a sandbox where we're supposed to make our own fun, forget about all the buckets and spades which aren't there, and concentrate on simply enjoying the sand with friends. Still don't have the missions to really fill it in. Let's see. Simply put, Star Citizen has a frame rate issue so bad it ruins everything. There are glimpses of 60 frames per second when servers are fresh and populations are low. Oops, sorry. But as soon as people join, the frame rate plummets. What it means is that you're unlikely to ever see more than 20 frames per second regardless of your graphics setting. And usually you'll hover around 15 frames per second. This was miserable. This was a terrible time. But it's reminiscent, right? This reminds us of the now. What good is having a futuristic marvel of a machine if you can't feel the thrill of piercing a planet's atmosphere and roaring along the canyons below, buzzing the proverbial towers? You say that. Furthermore, what good are panels to turn things on or off or exit vehicles if the choppy frame rate makes it an ordeal targeting them? I was genuinely stuck in the passenger seat of a buggy for this reason. A buggy ride that would have been a gop-inducing if we had witnessed it at anything more than a slideshow. I had one glorious glimpse of 60 frames per second, but within 10 minutes, the server had reverted to headache level. I'm glad that they got the frame rates figured out, but there are still problems that make this kind of thing still be a reality. So while the game definitely is not this bad at 4.0's release, there are echoes of it. But I feel like that's kind of like that makes sense. So here's what a gameplay video would have looked like back then from streamer ZenthorZ, who I watched a ton of Zenther's content around this time, but you'll see the frame rates and stuff up here in the left-hand corner. This is just standing on the surface of Daymar. Nothing really special. Honestly, I'm kind of nostalgic. There was a sense of like, I remember when this update first came out, there was really a sense of just being, because this was, I think, the first time we had ever really experienced flying from space to planet, landing and walking around in such a detailed environment in a video game that it was kind of just like, you wanted to just fly somewhere, which was cool. It's just unfortunate that it was like average 15 frames. Oh yeah, it says right up there in the top left-hand corner, 100% on the GPU, 100% on the CPU. And CPU is freaking 90 degrees, GPU is 85. Like the freaking quality that this game runs at now compared to before. I'm not saying it's perfect or great or anything, but the team did a good job with the engine making it run better. Basically just killing your computer components running this right now. He's just 100% on the GPU constantly. There's not as much going on here, so it's hard to see. Like there basically weren't missions, right? You couldn't quantum travel to other planets. You can't do any of the things that you can do in the game now, so it's hard to draw a direct comparison to how well it runs then versus now. And he's mainly just exploring. I mean, you get a kind of an idea of how it looks and performance, at least. Oh, this is on a freaking laptop. That's why. Yeah, he's playing. Oh my god, he's playing with 8 gigs of RAM. Hold on, let's find a better example. I'm gonna stick with Zenther because I know his stuff. All right, so this is running on i7-5820, water-cooled 9080 Ti. Oh, he's on SSD, 16 gigs of RAM. Okay. Maybe this runs better, actually. Let's go back to the planet's surface. 9080 Ti. Yeah, but he doesn't have his stats up here. But actually, it looks like it's performing much better on this build. Actually, better than mine back then, for sure. I think that's why I watched him. I watched Zenther play because his gameplay looked so good compared to the game at the time. Don't diss the laptop. They came a long way. Dude, I'm not hating on a laptop. Just saying. Laptop will definitely run the game worse. So this is actually looking fairly smooth in comparison. Better frame rates than I remember. Jesus. I don't see any NPCs standing on chairs. What happened, CIG? It's a little bit of a bummer that we can't see him doing the gameplay we would expect here, but the game was just genuinely very, 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 very basic back then. 3.0 investigation mission, escort mission, Kudra or troublemaker. I just want to see what like some basic form of like FPS or any kind of gameplay besides ship combat. Star Citizen was basically all ship combat back then. And we had, what, 25 player servers back then? 50 player servers? The shopping experience back then? Oh my gosh. I know we're getting a little bit distracted from like the state of the game right now, but I think this is a really interesting comparison. Port Olisar. Port Ollie. We miss you. There were like three versions of armor. The old Moby Glass. They were full screen.
Got a pretty good selection.
Here we go. Here's a mission. These were like pretty common types of missions back then. You'd go out to the yellow asteroid belt, and then you would search a placed derelict. But there were like, see folks, we have derelicts right now in the game because they systemically make them and place them around the game. These were bespoke places. They were like 3 ships. You just go to the same 3 ships over and over. Yeah, the pad ramming being gone is nice. They do a lot more site dressing with these kinds of things too. This reminds me a bit of the Xenothreat stuff when you have to go on board the Starfarers, and there's just a lot more visually to pay attention to. All right, you know what? I think we've looked at this enough. The 3.0 launch had its problems, but it doesn't, I think, for the most part, it's not really that unsurprising that 4.0 is also having struggles in the same way. Different things, similar problems though. There's a lot of problems with crashing, instability, items not working. I think now that we have more complex systems like the physical interaction system and the UI system and the planets and stuff, there are more things that can break. We'll see if they can get them fixed though. As you can see with the 3.0 update back then, there were a lot of changes too at that time. Quantum travel, afterburner, the flight model was changing kind of like it is now. The character system was being implemented, interaction changed like it did in 3.23. They added planetary surfaces, which obviously is completely new at that time. Kind of like how we're adding new systems, I guess, is like the big change. Air traffic control was implemented. And you know how they say this is such a big problem for the game that needs to be reworked? This is the version. They built the version for 3.0 to work with the 3.0 type of game. But obviously, over the years, it's become a little bit outdated, and instead of trying to fix it for 3.0, they wanted to wait until they were on to the next step of the game, 4.0, with server meshing, before they took a shot at it. Hopefully, this is something they tackle this year. AI updates, kiosks for shopping were changed, inventories and pricing, mission system was changed. Something that happened in 3.0, we also saw happen in 4.0, was we lost missions. We didn't just gain a few, we lost some of the older ones. That happened with 3.0. Many of you remember Tessa Bannister. First implementation of cargo was introduced. The 1SCU box was made. Literally couldn't even be picked up. Couldn't even pick up a box. They had cargo grids. They were broken. Buy and sell was there. It was mostly broken. You can see they did a lot of Star Marine ships, first-person user experience. The power system in ships was implemented. Emissions were messed with. The heat system was made. These are all things we're seeing happen with anywhere from 3.23 to 4.0, basically. UI updates, interaction updates, quantum updates, power system, heat system, items, cargo boxes. All this stuff is just happening again. It's hard to emphasize just how parallel the 3.0 update actually was to 4.0. If you include the 3.23 and on updates in 4, I think they split things out. Whereas with 3.0, again, those who were there would remember, they didn't give us any updates. They just said, we're not going to give you updates till 3.0 is ready. And they put everything in the one. This time they gave us 3.23 and 3.24. I think just to balance it out and deliver stuff in a timely manner. But that was a 3.0 launch. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about in terms of stability of the game and where it is right now. That's not all there is to the project, but I think it's worth noting that like the 4.0 launch has been rough. The game is in a rough state, but they have been busting their asses to try and get stability into a better place, I think, and get a 4.0.1 out. And like Balt said, things will get rough before they get better when it comes to server meshing. I personally think that they've done a good job, but that's because I'm not looking at it from a current gameplay perspective. When I jump in the game and I'm playing the game and I'm in with the org, I hate the game's guts. It pisses me off. And I don't want to discredit that. It's very reasonable to put the game away because it sucks right now. But I think that it's in a very good place because they were able to get server meshing in and still keep the game running and start focusing on the next step. All right. So Star Citizen started a new tradition last year that they call the In Case You Missed It sale, which just I don't enjoy. I know they need to make money, but this honestly feels like, hey, we know you joined at the end of the year for IAE or whatever big things we did then, but we were selling stuff earlier in the year, so like maybe you could buy that too. Like I get it. There is a need to make it available for people, but it's also like, no. No, I'm not a big fan of this sale. I didn't like it last year. I was hoping they wouldn't do it again, but here it is. 2024 was a huge year in the verse, which culminated with the opening of the jump gates to the distant and lawless system of Pyro. To make sure you're ready to take on the bloodthirsty gangs and merciless outlaws, every ship and ground vehicle released last year is available again for a limited time. Every ship, cool. So like the Peregrine's going to help me with the bloodthirsty outlaws and the merciless gangs. The Terrapin medical got me covered. The Atlas, totally taking it to the gangs. They are... CIG isn't necessarily hurting for money, but they are a business and they are very closely tracking their balance ins and outs. They're profitable, not incredibly profitable. They're profitable, like I think maybe a couple million a year, possibly. And I think they wanted Squadron 42 out earlier. I think Squadron 42 is a big part of funding the development, and it has kind of missed a couple deadlines. So I'm not sure if there was a reality in which this sale would not have happened, but I do think that CIG will need to continue doing both things sales-wise and gameplay-wise to keep their funding going at a pace that allows them to keep enough people on to make this game and then also make the Squadron games. This is an expensive freaking endeavor, one that they probably shouldn't have taken the way they did, but now they've got to find ways to pay for it. So they do sales like this sometimes that I'm not a huge fan of. I don't take part in them. It's like a I guess it's a necessary evil that you see. I still have criticisms for how they present it, but you've got to be able to continue funding the project. So sales-wise, my whole point of introducing this was just that it's worth acknowledging also where CIG and Star Citizen is in terms of their sales and what they're doing. I think they've made some poor decisions in the past year for the sake of selling ships. The Peregrine, I don't know. This felt like just kind of a mess in terms of the expectation settings and all of that stuff. I'm glad that this led to a gold rework for the Saber Raven, but it felt genuinely like they were just trying to build a ship that could be the Saber Raven that wasn't locked behind exclusivity with Intel. And then they didn't. So I don't know why we got a large racing ship randomly the same year. I think that we got the was the Fury. The Fury was last year. Like, I have nothing against racing ships. I just think this was a really weird addition. The Atlas move also, I think, wasn't a great one. The timing on the release of this ship or this vehicle was just not great. It was not a good look. I don't think that they released this vehicle so they could make more money from cargo hauling. It's freaking over. It's done. It's in the past. This vehicle lasts much longer than the Sail did for years and years and years. And I think that in mind, cargo hauling and logistics work is going to be a pretty cool time because you're going to have a lot of choices and ways to interact with the stuff. And they can build ways to progress through that profession by using vehicles like this and tools and ships. But the way that they did it, the way that they launched it, not great. Not just because we're late in the project and they can't do stuff like that anymore, but also because we have a lot more eyes on this. And there's a lot more way to interpret these kinds of things. I think CIG would do themselves a huge favor by just not giving people the ability to interpret everything they do as money grabbing. Like, even if it is money grabbing, try to do other things, you know? Not to say they don't. There are things occasionally throughout the year that I think go pretty well for them. But over the last year, some of them have not hit very, very well. In terms of ships, they've also been doing a great job of delivering ships, I think. They used to do... Actually, this is a really good thing to touch on when you're talking about the state of the game is the ship backlog. We need to find Odysseus, my man, Odysseus Ithaca. Colonial Movers, of course. He usually keeps these updated posts coming out, so it looks like he put one out at 324. So here's our ship backlog. And it shows all the ships when they were released, like for players to know about, and then the red ones are not released, the black ones are released. Now, this doesn't include things that need to be reworked. There's a lot of reworks that need to happen, but ship delivery is important, especially since that's how they're making a lot of their money. So this is a look at the Star Citizen ship backlog in 324. Now you can see almost every ship from that first year has finally been released. The only one that hasn't is the Idris, which we know they're waiting for that for Squadron. So essentially every ship from the first year is done. That's good. Of these, the Starfarer and the Constellation, Starfarer, Constellation, and the Caterpillar all need pretty hefty reworks. 2013, next year, the only two ships left are the Banner Merchantman and the Orion. We know by both of those aren't happening. This week in Star Citizen, thank you. We know both of those aren't happening anytime soon. The Banner Merchantman, because the team isn't there to solidify the style. The gameplay is not there. Like, we need player shops in bases before we can get player shops in ships. And it's just a big ship that they lost a team that was working on it to Star Atlas. Orion, we're not going to have for a while because that's a large scale mining. They got to build that out. So in terms of ships we can use, the first 2 years are pretty much done. I think the 890 Jump needs a pretty decent rework, and the Reclaimer needs a pretty decent rework. The Carrack needs some updates. 2014, we're missing the Crucible, the Endeavor, the Starliner, and the Javelin. The Javelin's waiting for Squadron 42. The Genesis Starliner is waiting for passenger transport. The Endeavor is a fucking monster, and I don't know when that's going to happen. And the Crucible is the ultimate repair ship. So in terms of gameplay, you've got passenger transport, science, we'll say, #science, and the Crucible repair ship. So for 2014, all of the ships that could be delivered with their gameplay have been. The last of those being the Lynx, I think. But both the Prowler and the Redeemer have some issues with them that probably need some reworking. And these are big ships. Like the Javelin, I don't think is going to be too much of a problem because of Squadron, but these 3 ships, the Endeavor, the Crucible, and the Starliner, are going to be hefty. 2015. Really, 2015 was a light year for ships. They introduced the Hull series, the Vanduul Glaive, and the Sabre. We've got the Sabre, the Glaive, and the Hull A. Now, the Hull A and the Hull C act as the sort of template for the rest of them. So I don't know how much more work these would take, but outside of the Hull series, the ships for 2015 are done. So up until 2015, pretty good. 2016, on here, the Polaris is marked as red, but it is complete. So all of the ships from 2016 have been delivered, including the Terrapin plus its variant, the Razor and its variants, the Prospector and its upcoming variant, the Fortune will be released. The Vanduul Blade is out, but needs a rework. MPUV Cargo we have, along with its variants, Dragonfly, yes, Buccaneer, yes. So 2016 all the way up until basically all the ships are done except for the hull and the large gameplay focused ships. 2017, 600i is going to have a pretty big rework. Most of these I think are pretty much good otherwise, besides components. The Hawk got a little bit of work last year. The X1 base is good. The Vulture got released. The Pioneer is in works. Pioneer's in white box, which is kind of crazy. Don't know when that's coming. Definitely not this year. But that will be the last ship to finish up 2017. And to be quite honest, folks, the problem starts to shift from they're not delivering old ships that are on the road, the backlog, to they need to update the old ships that they have released. But I think that's a better problem to have than what we had before. 2018, Apollo Triage is marked as red. That is on the roadmap. Well, it's on the teaser thing. So the Apollo is marked off of here. The Vulcan is a big one. Small ship, but a big deal. And we don't know anything about that yet. That depends on drones, so might still be a while. Star Runner needs a rework. C2 probably needs a little bit of work. The Kraken is not in development yet, but it's got exterior modeling done. So it is fairly far along, and it'll probably depend on the Ironclad coming out. So I would say Kraken not for a little while. Vulcan not for a little while. But the Apollo this year is a possibility. So we might have all but 2 ships on 2018. And really, of those 2 ships, just one of them is small. If you look at the ships that have not been delivered in the game yet, going all the way up to 2018, the only small ships that haven't been delivered are the Hull B, the Apollo, and the Vulcan. And the Apollo might come this year. So that's not terrible. Obviously, that includes the Apollo's variant, which you see down here. 2019. You'd see 2017, like these 3 years, 2016, 2017, 2018, and even some of 2019, a lot of original new concepts were revealed, which was annoying, but in the years since, they've delivered a lot of those concepts into the game. Crucible isn't that big either. Yeah, I guess it's not as big as I like to think of it. Moving on to 2019, we've got some crowd favorites here. The Corsair was included. The Mole is here. The Ranger is also here, but the Ranger probably will not be delivered for a while, I would say. Let's see, Ballista, the Corsair is actually pretty good, I would say. Doesn't need a huge rework. The Expanse, don't know where that is, but it is fairly small. I'm hoping it comes this year for refining with crafting, but I think refining will start on the ground first, and then they'll introduce the Expanse. Nautilus is like a sleeper almost. Nautilus is one of the least known about ships in the game, I think. But it is essentially a mine layer, which is, in my opinion, a weird ship for this game, but okay. Essentially, it puts out bombs in space that can lock onto and track a ship. They can have turrets on them, they can have bombs on them, they can have jamming devices on them. These could be very, very useful in org ops. You could leave these out near somewhere where you know an enemy is going to be quantum traveling in, and it could have like an interdiction field maybe connected to it, so you don't have to have a whole spaceship out there doing it. And it's a cool looking ship. I really like the visuals of it, but I don't think I'm ever going to make use of it outside of our org. So you got the cockpit all the way up here behind my face. You got these like circular hallways going throughout the ship, turrets on the outsides, and then just like this massive mine laying contraption here on the top in the middle. That's also on the roadmap. I don't think that's coming anytime soon, but that's right there alongside the Expanse and Ranger. Those are the only 3 ships in 2019 that haven't been delivered. 2020, we move on. The G12 is like, I think, the sore spot on their record, because there's no reason for the G12 not to be in the game. And there is a unique reason to have the G12. It is the only buggy, like a Cyclone, that also has a closed cockpit like an Ursa. So it could be a very useful ground vehicle, but we don't know where it is. Besides that, from 2020, we're just missing the Perseus, which we know is in production right now, and I think is a pretty good chance it's coming out this year, if not almost guaranteed. So just missing, by the end of this year, just one vehicle from 2020 along with its variants. 2021?
Toes.
Liberator. I'm guessing they just want physics and stuff figured out better for the Liberator, and then they can put some work into it. I think it's an Anvil ship, so maybe whenever they get around to working on more of those. The Odyssey is a big MISC exploration ship that I don't think is coming soon. But again, big ship, specific gameplay. It's also a miner and a refiner. It's got a lot going on, so it might be a while. The Raylan is an alien ship, so it's not out, and I don't know when it is out. They were supposed to work on the Raylan after the Santok Yai, which was released back in 2018, but they did not. In 2022, we saw the Cutter introduced. That was straight to flyable. We saw the Galaxy. Just don't know where that's going to... I hope the Galaxy come next year. I'm not sure what their plan is for that, though. The Legionnaire is the hacking ship that they have talked a lot about at length. It was supposed to come out last year. So I'm thinking the Legionnaire has probably seen a decent amount of work to get it up to at least the gray box state, and is likely not a huge amount of work after that. So we might see the Legionnaire pretty quickly after hacking gameplay finally gets done. Hacking gameplay is basically Salvage 2.0. So I'd like the Legionnaire could come with hacking this year. It could come with hacking in 3 years. I don't know. It constantly gets delayed. If you don't know my Salvage reference, let me show you. Salvage was the most delayed feature in Star Citizen's history, to the point where it was comical. This picture, this is not all of the delays it went through. This is just the ones that happened up until the point this picture was made, but you can see that we have a 3.2 delay as it was supposed to be in there. Another delay to 3.2, a delay to 3.3, a delay to 3.5, a delay to 3.8, a delay to 3.10, another delay to 4.0. Oh, 4.0 is not happening? Okay, delay to 3.15. 3.15 is not working. Delay to 3.16. Oh, we need PES. Okay, keep on delaying it. And it kept going and going and going until they finally got persistent entity streaming, which the whole time, I'm pretty sure persistent entity streaming was the blocker for Salvage. They just, for some reason... not for some reason, it's because they didn't manage expectations well with this. They just didn't say it back here. Hey, we need some big tech for this. It might not happen quick. Instead, they just kept saying, no, it's going to be in this update. No, it's going to be in this update. No, it's going to be in this update. And that was frustrating to see. So is hacking running into something like that too? I don't know, but hacking continues to be delayed in very similar ways. So while the Legionnaire could come this year because they've said that it's getting worked on and hacking was being worked on, maybe it's also going to slip into next year or the year after. Let's continue hyped through this backlog. I don't even know how to do that. The UTV from Tumbrel is kind of it's not really much to go off of for this vehicle. It's a ground vehicle. There's no real reason why it shouldn't be in the game other than just that they haven't had the time. But I think this is the kind of thing they're going to want to give to somebody who's starting out in Star Citizen. So this might be the vehicle that we just kind of see slip into an update without any sort of mention or fanfare or anything like that. So keep an eye out for this one this year. It can probably help a lot when it comes to things like base building and navigating around those bases. The STV's out, the Spirit's out, the Mule's out, the Cutter's out. So Legionnaire and Galaxy are really the two ships from that year that we haven't seen. And both of those have a good chance of coming in the next couple of years. I think the Legionnaire is actually less likely to come than the Galaxy, to be honest. So the first ship that we saw, or actually I think it was the last ship we saw that year, was the Arastra, new mining ship from RSI, something people are hopeful will be worked on with the RSI focus right now, but I don't know about that. The Fury is out, the Pulse is out, the Storm is out, the Siulen is out, and the Zeus is out. I can't even read. Okay, it looks like the Guardian and Intrepid were also introduced in 2023, so both of those, wait, really? Oh, because I think they might have been leaks maybe or something. Because both of those were supposed to be straight to flyable, right? So the only ship introduced in 2023 that's not in-game is the Arastra. We're also missing the Zeus MR variant, but we do have the CL and the ES, so they've made the Zeus. They just have to build the variant. So we're doing well 2023 as well. 2024, wait, the Ironclad should be in 23. Oh my God, was the Ironclad introduced last year? Wow. Okay, 2024, we have the Atlas, we have the CSV, and we have the Hornet. There are plenty of variants that need to be delivered from 24. The Atlas, the Hornet, and the Starlancer variants. We got the Terrapin Medical, so that's good. And we got the Starlancer Max. So from 2024, we're basically missing the ships that are from like the list, which is the CNOU ship, which I think is what he's saying here. The Grey Cat vehicle, which is a ground vehicle. The Drake ship that we saw had the folded up wings. The Ironclad, which we all know and expect probably this year or next. I'm hoping this year, end of year. And that's mostly it. So in total, there are 207 ships. 156 of them are currently flyable, marking 75% of all vehicles delivered. You can see the backlog here and where they stand. I think this is finished ship versus backlog ships. So it looks like the biggest amount of backlog ships is coming from 2019. Total flyable ships, 156 out of 207. 17 snubs, 70 small ships, 26 medium ships, 20 large ship, and 1 capital. So capital ships are obviously hurting the most. And that kind of makes sense. So I don't know, take of it what you will. They still have work to do on the backlog. I think they've done they've made so much progress on this in the last 2 years or so. It's not bad. The catch is that even if the ship is finished, it still needs updates. Next, let's look at, this was just talking about where all the information is. In January, we're a bit late. Oh yeah, Bandy Merchantman, thank you. We're a bit late on information this year, so people have been asking questions. He said, we're working on the release view and progress tracker, but it may take a while before you see these updates. Not sure what a while means, but honestly, if we don't see a release view update by the 5th, I would say by the 12th, then what the heck's going on? We need some communication on not necessarily roadmap, but 4.1 plans by the 12th. Because right now we just don't have no clue what the heck's going on with this game. We don't even know what plans are for the next quarter, which is absurd. Another part of missions lost. I keep on trying to jump forward. This is actually something I meant to cover earlier when we were talking about the mission refactor and the fact that 4.0 was missing missions when it released. Just like with 3.0, we lost missions. And here's one of our main mission guides, Elliot, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, explaining why. The mission system refactor was an absolutely huge task that had a ton of hidden complexity and things we needed to redo, consider, or just general tidy up. With this, I made a priority list of missions to get refactored first. So you will notice a few missions have gone missing. This doesn't mean they don't work. This doesn't mean they won't come back. We are working towards We are working through refactoring some of the ones that we didn't get time to do for the first 4.0 release, which are ones like the 890 jump mission, the hijacked caterpillar. Some missions might come back with the same name, but play very different, as well as we are using this time to also... Is there blue text here? Just gonna... Okay. I don't know. We're gonna get more missions in here because trust us, we're also using this time to... Just so you know. And that's 4.0, everyone. I don't know what the heck that's supposed to mean, but it sounds actually better than 3.0 did. When 3.0 came out, they were like, yeah, we lost some missions. Oh, well. Like you can still see in some of these Star Citizen lives, they're still talking about bringing back Tessa Bannister. So this is at least seemingly a faster effort to return people to the missions that they like. And I'm glad they're also talking about some of them playing different. That means that they are taking older missions that we had that maybe played for 3.0, and they're probably going to make them a little more complex and a little more complete for 4.0. So my hope is that by the time they've finished their mission refactor and gotten the ones they want into 4.0, we're not playing any that are particularly outdated or boring. They're all kind of updated for the game as it is now. All right, so they also said not all missions are gone, that are gone will come back, and we're still finalizing that list. The reason for this is some of these missions are incredibly old and a product of Star Citizen, where Star Citizen was at their time of release, and we don't consider them fun or to represent the vision we have for Star Citizen 1.0. However, as mentioned before, some of these missions might come back just in an incredibly different gameplay state. It's all part of our effort to make fun and engaging content for our player base. I'm very excited for the missions aspect of this game. Now that they've got server meshing in and they can start working on the mission refactor, once that refactor is done, I've got my fingers crossed. I'm very hopeful that they can start to implement the missions they've talked about. Because it's not like there aren't any, okay? The barge heist, you guys remember that? The Crusader barge heist? Undoubtedly that just disappeared because the performance wasn't working or they couldn't get the loot in that would make it rewarding enough. How about mining missions? Remember when they were talking about doing mining missions for the profession? It was supposed to come in around the same time as the salvage missions. Probably, again, not worth doing until mining was in a better state and they could have their mission refactor to slot it into where it's actually supposed to be. And then there's the investigation missions we watched earlier this stream. There's quite a few pieces of content that they've shown that I think have been not able to be implemented, partially because of the stability of the game, and also partially because people like Elliot are working on fumes because so much of the effort is towards Squadron 42. So if both those things can figure themselves out this year to some extent, we might see a lot more missions. Now, finally, going towards another part of this game that has changed that is likely to rub people the wrong way, but is natural, is the community and the culture of said community. For those who have been around for a while, it's pretty hard not to notice that the overall vibe of the community is different. I think a lot of that comes down to not a lack of patience. Like, people have been plenty patient. I think it comes down to the game taking so long and not making a lot of good progress, which has made people mad. Absolutely. And you're completely free to be frustrated and angry. I would suggest taking a step away. Surrounding yourself with something that already makes you annoyed is not a great life choice. But there is also just the game is getting more popular. Now, I am not in any way saying that people who don't like the game or anything are bad. This conversation is headed more in the direction of people who are very purposefully kind of being problematic or obtuse. Trolling people in the game by like doing things that actually ruin the game for them. Following them around, constantly screaming into microphones when you can't mute players. Stuff like that is becoming a bit more common. We've always had our pad rammers, but the community is starting to turn into a proper gaming community, you know? And gaming communities have bad actors. And I think that the less we have tools to handle those bad actors, the more it's just going to keep being people angry at each other. Like people have been asking for self-moderation tools for quite a while. The ability to mute players, the ability to like block players. I think even possibly being able to go into a different shard from another player. I don't know how that would work. But like, there's a lot of, I don't want to call it anger. I think just like conflict in the community. Plenty of the community is great. We do a lot of fun talking on the Discord, even here on the stream. But I'm sure you've all noticed that it's almost hard to talk about things without having to acknowledge that something is bad or something is broken. And it leaves this whole category of people just causing trouble for others and enters this kind of like, oh, we're bored, so we're just gonna do whatever. Whether it's I'm bored, so I'm gonna murder players however I want, or I'm bored, so I'm gonna go on to Spectrum and troll other players, or I'm bored, so I'm gonna come on stream and list all the things I'm unhappy about. It's not that those things are bad. Not all of those things are bad. But they add to a dragging morale. And slowly, as the focus of a community turns more towards the unhappiness of the community, I think it degrades the community over time. Again, I'm trying to be really careful with how I say this because I'm not saying people can't be negative. I want to be very clear there. It's not that you shouldn't be negative, but when it is always negativity, just like when it's always positivity, it's going to be rough. And I think there needs to be a balance. And I guess we might be in the midst of balancing. There have been points in Star Citizen history where everything was obnoxiously positive too. Myself included. I've been very positive about stuff over the course of this development that I probably could have been more reserved and hesitant about. And I think there has been a correction with that, but maybe a large correction that has now led to, I really don't want to draw these parallels with anything else in the world, but this is kind of just how everything is, right? Like there's a lot less nuance, I think largely because one type of messaging or philosophy is very outspoken. And so the people who don't like that see this outsized proportion of that sort of philosophy and thinking, and so they become louder to try and counteract that, and that can sometimes gain a lot of ground that ends up running its course and then continuing to go on and on. Last night there was a guy who posted at the entrance of a contested zone killing players as soon as they walked in. He was bragging about it in the general chat. Yeah, see, like stuff like that is a lot of that is people just being bored. I bet that player would be off doing something much more fun if they had stuff to do. And that's grown a lot over the years as the community has grown. Even though the game has gotten more stuff to do, it has not kept up with those expectations. So this is something that I just wanted to touch on real quick. I won't spend too much time on it, but as I peruse the forums, Spectrum is obviously a very key place to see this kind of stuff in action. I'm not saying everybody is negative and toxic and stuff, but it is becoming more of a thing that proliferates in the community, and it's also calling for, things like bans and stuff, and CIG's got to be careful around this. I think this could get out of hand. But I also think that a big part of solving this problem is building a game that people are actually excited to play. The less people are actually enjoying a game that they feel like they have to play, the more they're going to be doing stuff that the game isn't really intended to be about, and that can lead to just killing other people. But yeah, quick stop off. Obviously, the Spectrum forums are always a place to come for some good discussion. At this point, I think the most important thing is, what is their messaging going into this next month? What are they going to say about 4.1? And what are they going to say about server meshing? Very important points. And in the grander scheme of things, looking at ship sales, looking at features, looking at the ship backlog, I don't think this game is in a bad state at all. I actually think that almost all of my outlook on this game is on how well they can improve the game experience at this point. I think they've done some pretty solid things to get the ship team up to tackle that backlog. They've done a okay job at releasing some new features in gameplay over the last year or two in comparison to before. Still not, I think, up to expectations. But I think, and then funding wise, I don't think they're in trouble. I think really all they need to figure out at this point is how to make sure people are enjoying the game more. Playability. And I hope they can. Because I feel like things are looking fairly good for Star Citizen at the moment. We just need to hear some more news about the near future. But yeah.